Hello, thank you everybody. I am very disappointed that I couldn't be here in person, but I am very grateful to be able to present via Zoom. My presentation about the public discourse paradox is based on an article called Algorithmic Personalization Features. And because this is part of the session about systemic risks of AI, what I hope to do as one of the first presenters is to set the ground for what I think is an unaddressed structural problem that I think will play a role in many of the issues that the summit will address. I'm so sorry that I cannot engage in person, so I urge everybody to copy my email and reach out. I would be very, very happy to engage with you in any way I can. So the public sphere is usually being acknowledged as the bedrock of democracy. This is something that we think is helpful to deliberate, to get to know different opinions, different perspectives, different solutions, to use the knowledge of experts, and to get to know the others. So we are not alienated from people or things or opinions or views that we do not know. And when the internet and particularly social media was presented as something new, they all addressed it as the new town square, something like the marketplace of ideas. These are people like Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg. And this was supposed to be even more democratic than what we had before, and because now each and every user can just go online and post whatever they think, right? Well, I would argue that wrong, and it's not the same. And this is because of two features that I am going to focus on, and I will call them personalization features. One is amplification algorithms, and the other ones are recommendation systems. And these features are working in a very similar way. They collect information points about users, and then they profile the users, and then they focus either on content. Amplification algorithms would focus on content and would spread some content more than another according to the different profiles. And the recommendation systems will focus on the users, will see what the user engages with more, and they will bring this sort of content to him. Of course, they feed from each other, because if I am pushed, I don't know, kittens videos, and I engage with it, then the recommendation systems will find that I like it more, and they will keep on pushing this sort of information of content to me. Now, there are two consequences, that at least two, that I'm going to focus on, that come out of these mechanisms. One is echo chambers, because the more I engage with specific content, the more the more, or the less pluralistic it becomes, right? So I engage with people that are more like-minded. Psychologically, the brain wants to feel validated. And the more I engage with like-minded people, the more other voices are being excluded, and the more people feel comfortable within the group. Now, the content that works for engagement is the content that provokes strong emotional reaction. So people will try to use this sort of content. Other speakers will try to use this sort of content to be heard in the competition between all users. They will try to use this sort of content, and therefore the discourse becomes more and more extreme and more shallow. So social media does not offer a shared space. The reality is that we have these kind of corridors, and it provides many unique non-overlapping information silos that are engineered with very minimal control of the user, right? So I cannot choose what is being shown to me. I can engage more with specific things out of those that are chosen for me, and I can block other people or other contents, but there is not real control over the way that content is being matched to me. And this is a very good ground for manipulation. So I will take as an example the case of Cambridge Analytica in the 2016 election in the United States. This included data collection of thousands of information points on each users. They profiled them, and then they tailored more than 1,000 messages to each kind of profile and excluded what was inconvenient. Now, I want to stress two things. First of all, in the Cambridge Analytica case, the data collection was illegal. However, there are ways to do it legally. The second thing that I want to stress out is that this is pretty much a known mechanism for commercial purposes. The problem here was that it was done for political purposes. And what it caused is the fact that each user got only a piece of the information that could affect their opinion. Meaning, for example, I could find very little details, but the ones that I did find was the example of single mothers who are scared for their children to walk in unsafe spaces, telling them how the streets are extremely unsafe, or according to people supporting climate change or whatever the message is. And I want to point out that it doesn't even have to be disinformation. It doesn't even have to be lies. It can also be true information, but only partial. When you do not get the full picture, you can be very easily manipulated. Add to this the information overload that we have. And the information overload, again, a little bit about how our thinking works. The information overload does not allow each and every user to verify, confirm, and check every piece of information that they encounter. And especially not when we have so many information that does not come from actual people, but maybe from bots, and those are disproportionately spread. Therefore, at a certain point, what happens is that you identify, especially today with a modern with the modern identity politics, you identify with specific group. And at a certain point, you will start trusting what that group says without checking. I can give you one example. For me, for example, is we have very different channels, and you trust certain journalists more than others because you know that they are professional. But those journalists can fall as well and start spreading wrong information because of the exact information overload, right? So we are in a post-truth information. We cannot trust anyone. We identify with a group without really going deep into what feeds that. So here's what happens to the public's trust. We have echo chambers and polarized discourse, so pluralism is being harmed. We're less tolerant to whatever harms pluralism. We do not have the same or equal access to information, because information is being tailored to each and every one of us. And we are exposed to micro-targeting, and therefore we are in a post-truth era where our trust in institution erodes more and more. So what are the risks? The risks are of epistemic fragmentation. We no longer have the grounds, the common ground to deliberate and build consensus, but even if we don't build consensus, to agree on the background conditions of where we are at. We are prone to manipulation by bad actors, and those have no accountability at the moment. And freedom of speech can be suppressed very easily, not by forbidding someone from speaking, but just from silencing their voice by not spreading their message in an equal way. How are legal approaches treating this? So these are examples from different laws in different places that are taking different regulatory approaches. It's not one place or one law. Laws that address illegal content or extreme expression risk violating the freedom of speech. Laws that say we do not want to violate the freedom of speech, but we want to regulate the way that algorithms spread the ideas. They, first of all, they do not address the fact that the mechanism of a personalization of content matching. In the United States, this violates platforms' freedom of speech because the algorithm is protected by the First Amendment. Privacy rights minimize data collection that builds our profiles, but they do not change the content matching mechanism. And transparency are mostly voluntary, although I know not everywhere, but they do not require certain behavior from platforms. They just want the platform to share their decision. So they're not affecting neither the morality nor the priorities of content matching ways. So the summary is that I think if you believe that public trust is the foundation for democratic discourse, then we should be very worried about algorithmic personalization features, because they erode trust, but also democracy as we know it. I don't think that the current approaches taken are actually facing this problem. I think that there is a misdiagnosis of the problem, and that there should be some sort of prohibition, at least on political targeting. But to be honest, I'm not sure that we can, that it cannot be bypassed by other sort of targeting. And I think that there is a very big risk if we neglect to address this problem, because this has the problem to change democracy as we know it. Before I finish, I do want to mention two options that were taken to address parts of the problem. One would be the China wall that does not allow targeting, but spread a unique message to everybody. But one should think if this complies with the kind of democratic discourse that they would like. And the other one is a suggestion that I really like, and I think that should be further developed, is of middlewares that will allow opening a market of options to choose your targeting criteria, so users can choose their targeting criteria. I think the problem here is that there would still be silos, but at least the users will have more control over it, and there will be a competition, and that competition can lead to at least some targeting that is more valuable to the users. So I want to thank all of you for listening. And again, I invite you to reach out to me via email. I would be very, very happy to discuss more and hear more from you. Thank you very, very much.
All right, thanks very much, Sharon. So now we'll enter the Q&A. So we have about 10 minutes for questions. Where do we start? I see a hand going up right there, a gentleman with a pen in his hand.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bassan, for that wonderful presentation. One of the things I take away from what you've said about algorithmic recommendation systems and amplification is that the digital marketplace of ideas doesn't actually exist, that it's something that's presented that has been a fallacy for a long time, and it's effectively controllable. Yet Elon Musk, Stephen Miller, Mike Benz, all of these people are leveraging this idea of violation of freedom of expression in order to attack Europe, the UK, and scholars like me in the United States who do disinformation work. How do we translate this for the public? How do we help the public to understand what the problem is and how this system works in such a way that it's not just us making these arguments?
Thank you very much for this question. You are basically asking me to tell you about my next project. What I am really focused on content moderation, because I think that it has a very big role in everything that when we talk about free speech. And I focused on my last project, I focused on transparency as a solution, because transparency is quite a buzzword, and I doubt that it is a solution. What I did is I took the categories that platforms use to say what they would or wouldn't allow on their platform, and the transparency reports. And I've shown how these match or don't match, how they overlap or not, and what does it mean about the speech that gets lost somewhere, or the speech that is announced to be prohibited but is allowed. I think I'm very careful with my words here. I think that what we need to show the public is that platforms are businesses, and they do what they do for profit. And therefore, if we expect certain public values or public principles when we're talking about the state, the fact now is that all the constitutional values are, or at least the free expression, which is a constitutional value, is at the hand of private commercial platforms. And their priorities are not necessarily the public's priorities. And the more we focus on this gap, the clearer it will be, I hope, for the public to see. Because it's easy to show. It's easy to show that the messages are the messages that are being advanced are those of whoever pays, not necessarily those who are right or those who speak the truth, right? So this is where I'm taking this.
Thank you. All right, we got another question over here.
Hi, Sharon. I'm Ivan. I'm leading the unit of digital risk analysis in the cabinet of the Prime Minister in Spain. I think you did an amazing work going through different layers of the disinformation, how the mechanism and everything works. And now I think you were touching like an important point, which is related to the business model. Because, okay, we can speak about regulations, but the money is flowing in one direction and is nurturing this system. And I would like to know your opinion about how, if you identify any solution or any way of approaching this where it can hit the problem in a bigger scale, which is the money.
So, to be honest, thank you very much for this question. To be honest, I was probably too young when platforms were allowed to do whatever they want. I don't understand how anyone can introduce innovation without no one thinking about the potential risks. And I think now taking the power from such powerful forces is very difficult. I do think we should do it. We should aim to do it. We should strive to do it. We should at least cut the powers when we can. But most of all, many technologies get old. They're not being prohibited all of a sudden, but they get old. What we need to do is to look for the next technology that currently has no prohibitions. And if this is where the business world is going to, we need to learn from our mistakes and now try to regulate, try to limit the power of those that control these technologies. I've heard a lecture not so long ago talking about how the biggest forces in these models now are the hubs where all the power to work or to make AI even possible will stay, right? So they're not going to profit from one AI function or another, but from the fact that AI will lead every function or many functions that they don't really care about. So maybe we as public should care about that. We should think about the next one, because in the future, one technology will get old and another one will take its place. And I do hope that we're not too late for this one, but we're definitely the weaker side at the moment. Let us think about the future.
All right. We got a question over here, and then we'll take one more from, two more from the back. Please keep your questions short so we could cover a few more people. Thank you.
Hi, Sharon. Thank you. My name is Dave Aaron from a company called Gartner. I have a concern about speed. It's so quick to create radically new platforms. The hyperscalers have so much money in R&D compared to governments or universities. I feel like at best we're only ever going to be solving yesterday's problem. And you know, with agentic AI, where we just tell the AI what we want and it does it, it's only ever going to get worse. So there's almost a systemic issue that we're never going to be able to regulate fast enough as new platforms emerge. Could I have your views on that, please?
First of all, unfortunately, I share your concern. And I think that what we should talk about is principles and ethics. I don't know if this word has come up by now. But yeah, ethics is very important. Ethics in education of the people who are doing this, because so what I think is most concerning is not just the speed, but also the fact that it's the same mechanisms that are doing wonderful things can do horrible things. So we cannot, or it's a problem to ban a mechanism. We should ban certain uses, like the bad, or not use it. Yes, so like the bad applications of this, which is always a problem. It's not a new one, right? I don't have an answer. I wish I did, but I think, again, at least for improving the things, we should explain. I'm originally a bioethicist, right? And the doctors, they said, we know how to do this and that. And then you come up with all these genetic innovations and we don't want to be responsible. You, the philosophers or the ethicists, tell us something about it. And I think the same should go here. We should educate the engineers or the programmers or the developers, whatever. We should educate them about ethics, about assessing risks, and it should at least minimize what it should at least minimize those who are doing it without bad intentions, right?
Well said, Sharon. We got two more quick questions. One over there and one over there. Thank you.
Hello. David Eccles, RMIT University Australia. Marshall Van Alstyne talked last year here and gave a very powerful presentation, but he talked about the need to balance freedom of expression with the right to have decision rights, the free to receive information, which is basically free of disinformation. I'm just wondering if one of the problems we've got in solving this problem is the freedom of expression attack that always comes against disinformation research. Just wondering what you're thinking about this idea of decision rights.
Thank you for this question, and thank you for this forum to be able to express such opinions. So I think the freedom of decision is aligns with the middleware approach that I suggested earlier. Not me, that I support. Other people have suggested that. But also, I know that freedom of expression is the most important, one of the most important constitutional rights. But we should understand that it is being manipulated and that it is being used to do exactly the opposite. It has a chill out effect. It does exactly the opposite. So we should review and rethink and reframe what we mean by freedom of expression, right? Being a bully is also, you know, use your expression, but it does not necessarily mean that you allow freedom of expression to all. I don't think that it's separate from the identity politics that we have now, right? The atmosphere that does not really allow a dialogue, an open dialogue. So we should address it in the context of current politics. But yeah, I share the concern.
All right. Sorry. Thank you for waiting. Last question over there.
Thank you, Avian Leidig Center for the Study of Organized Hate. So I wanted to ask you a question regarding the recent landmark trial that found Meta liable for the addictive design of its systems. How do you think this is going to shape platforms' decision-making going forward?
Thank you for this question. I don't think this is new, right? So the verdict is new, but I think we have known it. I think that there were fines put on big platforms in the past, platforms that repeated doing what they did. So it depends on whether this will, I don't think that the money will change how the fee will change how they act, because they have enough and they gain so much from it. It needs to be something more. I do support the regulations some states are taking, or some countries are taking, against children on social media, but again, those are being bypassed. So I think, again, we should talk about it in the context. For me, it's in the context of politics, because I think it's part of the hate that is part of the atmosphere of public discourse. But you can put it in any other context. You can put it in the context of children that were isolated during COVID and are now being hooked on this thing. And you can put it on within the context of wars that are happening in the world and what that means for children to be online and be exposed to certain content and to violence that is happening in society. So I think I do support limiting children, and I do support finding platforms accountable. I just don't think that this will deter them from making profits.